The preview window in PhotoView 360 allows you to get a real-time preview of what your final render is going to look like. If you do go ahead and click on Final Render, it automatically brings up the preview window by default, and that's not an option that you can change. So if you go to Final Render, you're always going to see that preview window. But we can activate it beforehand so we know what our rendering is going to look like. And with the preview window, it helps to have a secondary monitor. I have two monitors here, but I'm not recording on the other, so I'll go ahead and leave this here. And we can resize this to whatever we want, but you can see that if we do use the same screen, this is going to block a little bit of our workspace. One of the important things to take note of with the preview window is the larger you make this, the longer the preview is going to take to generate. That's because it's generating 1-for-1 pixels for the preview, so it has less pixels to render in a smaller size. So if I come into the appearances and update a color or update a texture, this is going to update in real time to the preview window. And the preview does a fairly good job of showing what your model is going to look like in the final render. It will be a little bit different with respect to texture as well as how it reflects light. So you will get a slightly different look in your final render than you see in the preview. Within the PhotoView 360 options, we can control the render quality of the preview as well as the final render. And I almost always set the preview render quality to good, as this usually just takes unnecessary resource to make this a higher quality. It's generally better to take a look at that final rendering. As I said, the preview is going to be a little bit different than that final rendering. So there's not much point to waste too much resource or system resource changing that to maximum or best. We also have the option of using an integrated preview. That's going to take over the workspace. So if I go ahead and close out of the preview window, I can choose integrated preview. And this will turn the workspace into a preview. So if I want to change colors once again, for example, as soon as I do that, that preview is going to update. You also notice this going very slowly because that's to render this entire area. One way we can keep this in the workspace without having the slow render time or having to work specifically with the preview is to break this into multiple views. So if I come in and activate this window, I can turn off that integrated preview. And then I could always go ahead and switch the other one over to an integrated preview. This way you can keep working while still having that integrated preview, or it makes it a little bit easier to work with the integrated preview active. I'll go ahead and turn that integrated preview off and come back into a single view and then bring back my preview window. The preview window also works with any options that are not labeled final render only. So if I come into the options for PhotoView 360. You'll notice if I open up bloom, contour rendering, as well as direct caustics, all of these are labeled final render only, so I won't be able to see them in the preview. But for any textures or surface finishes that I change, for example, if this body had a different surface finish added, perhaps this rough texture, once this clears up a little bit, we'd be able to notice that this does have that rough texture. Or for example, something a little bit easier to see would be the dimpled. And the illumination will show up in that preview window as well, along with if we edit the scene or anything else in the appearance. So the preview window can be quite useful in setting all of these values, setting surface finishes, as well as changing your scene and editing those properties.